Okay, so we're just going to take this canopy off. And I've got barely any experience in conformal coating, but I understand how it works, how to do it, and I think I can still put an informative video out that will help a lot of people. But I am doing this as I go, so if it doesn't go exactly to plan right away, please try to have some patience with me. So let's see if we can tear this out, and it'll probably be a little bit longer video than it needs to be too, because like I said, I'm just doing this as I go. It's not like I already covered all this stuff and know exactly what to do, so I'm learning right along with you together. Well, that thing's really cool. It's rubber. It's not like 3D printed. I've got a 3D printed one coming that I had a friend make, and I'll be upgrading the camera to one that I can change. But and then this is soldered right to the VTX, and so that's kind of cool. And you see this little dab of glue over the solder on this side. So I'm just going to conformal coat all this board and all of this board and around the front right here. I'm not going to pull the lens apart and mess with any of that. And then this is really cool too. It just unplugs, so I'm just going to conformal coat around that and around the side. And it's got some two-sided tape on it, it looks like, which I will peel this away from here so that I can get my conformal coating on the entire board. But then I'm going to go ahead and put this back on because I think this is a great idea. So I will be reusing that. I'll just set it aside. I'll put it back on here and it'll stick on that board and help keep these pins from coming out. But it's going to be in the way of the conformal coating because I'm going to put it on there and around these edges. That little hole right there I want to make sure is covered, and that hole right there. And so this will all be completely sealed up. My 65X took a dunk in a little bit of water, and it wasn't bad. It was upside down, and it wouldn't have even came up really into the canopy, maybe on the camera lens, but I was trying to, it was in kind of a crazy spot. It was like on a stairwell, and I couldn't really get to it. And so I was trying to use the turtle mode to retrieve it, and I was basically, it was up there bouncing around with the props flying and sprayed itself with water, so it ended up getting pretty wet, and it didn't need to. So this just separates. Be really careful not to bend pins. And this is all I'm going to do. And while I'm at it, I'm going to check all these connections. I've heard of some stories of things not being set up very well, and that kind of freaks me out. So I'm going to pull the battery, and I'm going to pull the RX out the back right here. And this is a great job they've done shrink wrapping this, but I'm going to cut it off because I'm going to conformal coat it, and then I'm going to shrink wrap it back up. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull the motors, and I'm just going to use a little flat blade like this, and try look for something to make sure my orientation doesn't get confused. So it looks like, so this is the back. It's got this little groove that was holding the dipole antenna in it, and the battery leads come out the back, and the pins for the VTX are at the back of the board. So now I know that this board needs to be pigtail out the back, this board needs to be VTX plug out the back, and obviously the VTX with the camera forward. So I know the orientation of everything when I put it back together. I don't want to have to try to figure out why my quad's trying to fly backwards on me or anything. So I'm just gonna pull these out of there. And when you unplug your motors, just make sure you pull on the plug itself. If you can't get it, I got a little bit of fingernail in there, to grab it, but a flat blade works to break it loose, or maybe even some needle nose. Just don't pull on just the wires. That's a bad idea. So pull everything out of here, and to my knowledge, maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but on brushless motors you don't need to waterproof them. There's nothing that can happen. These can actually be underwater. They can be submerged while they run, to my knowledge. I know with RC rock crawlers we would drive right up rivers, and I mean water just flowing right through our motor and just cruising along like it was no big deal. And I've even seen some guys on a break-in procedure on a 3-phase brushless motor, like for those RC rock crawlers, where they would actually submerge the motor in a cup of water and run it and spin it while it was in water, and it cleans it, and I don't know, maybe I'm not educated enough on it to tell you too much, but I've seen it done and it's pretty neat. So I'm not going to worry about trying to waterproof those. I mean, they move too much anyway, it would never work. And I don't think I'm going to take this swimming, at least not on purpose. Anything's possible with my flying skills. But I'm going to try to keep it dry. So all this is just basically a preventative, just in case it does take a dunk. And this stuff is just like nail polish, so it literally just goes on, and you just put a nice coat on and let it dry, and it basically looks like a big gel coating. It's silicone, so it's pretty neat the way that it works, and it completely seals everything in. And so I'm just going to let that one sit and dry this side before I flip it, and same with this one. I'm going to go ahead and coat this whole side of it and then let it dry. And if you want to pick up some of this conformal coating, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link in the description, and just let these guys know where you saw this video, and just let them know that that you saw it on my channel, and they'll take good care of you. Really good people. I've been with them for quite a while now. So, and I'm getting the edges too, just because I want this stuff to seal completely. So I'm just going to let that hang out, and I'm going to start working on this. And same thing, I'm going to start on one side and flip it over once it's dry. And I'm going pretty heavy on this. You don't need to go this heavy. The reason I'm doing this is I'm not 100% certain that that this stuff has it, but a lot of this conformal coating will actually have a dye in it, so that you can look at your parts under a black light and see that you got every spot. And I don't have a black light, so I'm just gonna go super heavy on it to be on the safe side. And you can see, I mean, I'm nice and thick, and yeah, it'll add a little bit of weight, but I'm not super worried about that. And then I'm going to try to get really thick by these on both sides like that, and on the other side of this plug, because water can get between the plug and the board and short all those out. And then I'm going to again go around the edges like so. And I could probably do this side because it can sit up on these plugs, so I'm going to go ahead and do this side while I'm holding it. because when I set this down, it's going to set up on the motor plugs, and it's going to be okay. And then something you can do with these plugs is put a little drop of gosh dang it, it slipped my mind, anti-corrosion. If you put a little anti-corrosion in there, then even if water gets right down in the plug, it won't short the pins out in there. It's basically a gel, but it doesn't dry. It stays in a gel form, and but it still keeps the water from connecting pins and shorting things out. And I'm going to put just a touch in these like this. Not thick, because I don't want to jam those pins up. But when I stick the plug in, I'm hoping that little bit that I put in there will kind of seal and keep the water from going down in there. And then on this is really neat. You can actually, and I didn't know this until I did it, but you can put the conformal coating right over your VTX button, and it makes like a rubber cover and it's flexible. You can still push the button, and the conformal coating just stays there. So I'm going to start with the camera, and I'm going to start with the front side of it. And just like that. I'm going to go to the back side of it. Like that. And I'm going to pull these wires up. And I'm going to get under here. And then I'm going to push them back down. And get right here. This stuff lasts a long time. I'm getting down. I'm about half a bottle, and I've done 3 5-inch quads already with it. So it's, I mean, you get a lot out of it. If you got, I don't know what the average amount of FPV drones, you know, one of us owns in this hobby. I know I've got more than 3, so, but I'm not sure what would be considered average, but I would say 1 bottle of this would take care of most people's needs. I'm not really trying to coat the backside of this VTX on this metal. What I was doing is actually just brushing it down flat so it doesn't have a lump on it. But you don't need to go over that. I'm just trying to make it smooth so the sticky tape sticks to it. But what you want to do around the edges of it so that the water can't get inside. And kind of thick like that. And I'm noticing on this little chip right here, like that. And then I'm going to set this so it's sitting on that one edge of the camera and on the antenna, so it's mostly up off the, and then it'll just sit and dry. So now this is, it's tacky, so we're going to wait a little bit longer. I'm just going to pause this video and come back to it because I don't want to mess any of that up, so I'm just going to let that sit, and I'll just come back here in a bit. And I covered this in my other conformal coating video, but if you need to do solder repairs, it's not a big deal. Your iron will actually melt right through the conformal coating, and as long as your electronics are clean when you conformal coat, they will be clean when you melt the conformal coating off to get under it, and you won't need to do anything, and you can make your solder repair, and then you can just go ahead and wipe right back over what you did, and it'll be all sealed again. The pigtail. So we're going to go down like that. And then I'm going to flip this upside down and get my motors plugged back in. And I just noticed this right here. This actually has a directional arrow so that you know the all-in-one ESC goes forward. Interesting. And then the USB goes to the back. So that's just going to go in there like this. Like so. And it's a little bit tacky still, not wet, but I'm going to go ahead and put the rubber grommets back on. Just like that. And this also has an arrow on it that I'm just now seeing. And I'm going to stick this tape right here, like that, so that when I plug this VTX in, it will just like so. Now I'm gonna do this receiver last because I'm gonna put some new shrink wrap on it, and I want to tuck it in. I'm gonna try to do some thinking here before I stick this in, because if I'm gonna put my wires out this way, I need to put it in this way so that they're coming out around the front, and if not, I need to put it in this way so they're coming out the back. So I'm gonna do some thinking. I might even hop on Google and see what other people are doing. See if I can't get any cool ideas for what I want to do. Like I said, out the front's cool, but I'll probably be smacking into a lot of stuff. I'd rather be out the back, but if I can figure out a cool way to do it. So it sits all the way down in there. You gotta lift the wires up out of there. So I think I am going to make these come out the back. So I'm going to experiment with some stuff really quick with some different cable ties. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and secure this so that it can come out the back, and I'm going to go ahead and put a new piece of shrink wrap on it. Ooh, I hope it'll shrink that far. This is a big piece. You know what, let me see if I've got, I think I've got some other stuff here. Yep, this is a touch smaller. Not much, but just barely. Gosh, it's really not. It's like the same size. Dang it. Alright. So, I've got that nice and covered, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my bind button is pointing out the bottom, because I'm actually going to have this all situated, and when I bind it, I'm just going to reach in and poke it with a little driver. So now my only issue is I want to make sure that that is accessible. So I'm actually going to use the heat shrink to push these towards the quad, like so. Alright, so like that. So now the shrink wrap is sitting on the cable tie and is actually pushing the antennas so that I can access the USB port. And then I'm going to put one more cable tie in. This one, depending on, hopefully my battery lead is long enough, because I want to cable tie this just in case it gets tugged on, it doesn't rip it off the board. So I want to cable tie it to the frame, but that's going to take away some of the length. So it's only going to be like this long, so hopefully I can work it with my battery. And then this cable tie is also going to hold down the antenna up here. Now I've got access to the USB plug. My wires are nice and safe. I may get a little interference here with the VTX and the RX, but I think it'll be okay. My battery pigtail is nice and secure. I'll probably do something later on with the motor wires just to be extra safe with them. But for the most part, that is waterproofed, reassembled, nice and secure and still streamlined. I'm going to go ahead and put a clear canopy on this.